The Horror from the Vault. The following conversations, audio recordings, and testimonies all pertain to the incident that occurred from October 1st to November 2nd in the Alden County Natural Reserve and its outlying towns, Alden and Greenville. The first part contains a series of emails between researchers Michael Hayes and Richard Harris from hayesresearch.gmail.com to Richard Harris at Alden National Research. Subject: Important find. Richie, I know that we haven't spoken in a long time and that you need your space, but earlier today, while me and my crew were digging for new mineral samples, we stumbled upon something huge. Get back to me as soon as you can. Michael. From Richard Harris at Alden National Research to hayesresearch.gmail.com. Subject: What is it? Despite the creeping feeling that you're trying to get me to respond, I'll bite. What did you find? Oh, and what do you mean by new mineral samples? What happened to the old mineral samples? Subject: The vault. Richie, what happened to the old samples isn't anything to worry about right now. We got bigger things to discuss. As I had said in my previous email, me and my crew, that is to say, a crew of 20 bored college grads, were digging up a base of the tallest mountain in the park. I can't remember its name. When we found the entrance to the vault, most of the kids were more interested in the view, which was granted, a very nice one. But some of the kids were actually trying to earn their credit for a change, and it was this little group who called me over. Rather suddenly, just as I was about to call it a day, their voices were so loud, and the collective tone was both excited and frightening. I leaped from my chair and ran past a little cluster of trees to where they were. I found them all crowded around something that I couldn't make out until it was close enough. But when I saw what it was, I understood their reactions. The ground had collapsed where they had been digging, the loose soil falling away into a hole that had appeared out of nowhere. So I pushed past the whispering, frightening students and looked down, trying to see if someone had fallen in, hoping that no one had. We're on a shoestring budget, as it is without having to deal with the lawsuit. But I didn't see some deep dark pit. I saw a set of stairs, descending down into the darkness. A faint rush of cold air hit me when I leaned down for a closer look, and I backed away. I've heard stories about toxic spores found in tombs beneath the pyramids. So, I went to my tent and retrieved a bandana, which I tied to my face, as well as my gloves, which I put on. I mean, I just had to see what was down there. I had to. I returned to find that some of the kids were already starting towards the stairs. I warned them of it in my best teacher voice, and made sure that they had some form of protection as well as lights. I swear, I must be the only one who thinks these things through. I had one of the kids, a girl by the name of Laurie Summers, go tell the others what we had found and what we intended to do. And when she came back, we started our exploration. The stairs led farther down than I expected. The descent halted only by a few landings, where we stopped and talked among each other. Or rather, the kids talked. I was too busy examining the floor, walls, and the ceiling. And what from I found, it's pretty damn strange. The material looked like obsidian. Now, I'm not an expert in archaeology. I've never heard of a temple made of obsidian. Maybe you could share some of your knowledge with me? The stairs ended after a bit, and we found ourselves in an antechamber. It was colder than a frost giant's crowd down there, but the air was so still, stagnant even. Probably a good thing. I wore my mask and gloves, eh? Anyway, from the antechamber, we emerged into a short tunnel that led to a surprisingly spacious chamber. Eventually, was so dark that the flashlights did less than what we've hoped. Thankfully, nobody got hurt. As it turned out, there were 5 chambers in total. Just 5. Which strikes me as more than a bit weird. But believe me, it got weirder from there. You see, the first 4 rooms held nothing. No dust, no furniture, no bodies, and no sign of animal life. I didn't even see a single spider or cobweb when I was down there. But the 5th room was different. The 5th room had something in it. I honestly had no idea what the hell it was. At first glance, I thought it was a sarcophagus of some kind due to the shape of it. But when I got closer, I saw that wasn't the case at all. It had a rudimentary face and body etched into it. But, unlike the mummy's tombs I've seen, the overall picture didn't add up to something human. I honestly can't really describe what was wrong with it, but anything about it looked off, despite how it looked from a distance. The coffin is also made of metal, though I need to run a few tests to determine just what type of metal it is. We brought it back, and we have been setting up the necessary equipment, but I think that this one will give us a bit more trouble than the usual fare. Mostly because I can't see any way into the damn thing. I feel like one of those handsome adventurous scientists you see in a B-movie, looking over something new and interesting, waiting with bated breath to see what will come of this new find. It's so interesting. Maybe we can talk more in person. Say, over dinner. Michael. Subject: sorry. Sorry I missed dinner. Work in the lab has yielded some unforeseen results, and I, and most of my team, have been feeling under the weather. I'm glad the kids let my team do the rest of the work. Don't think that I could stand to hear them whining about how much their heads hurt, or how sick they've been feeling. I feel like crap, in the usual flu type way, but I haven't stopped working on opening the damned coffin, or whatever it really is. It seems as though we've stumbled across something new. How many of us get to say that? So, yes, my health is worth it. The samples, the metal from the coffin and the stones from the chamber, came back yesterday. I can safely say that I've never seen anything like it. As it turns out, the stone is obsidian, in appearance only. It was apparently filled with microscopic bands of frozen liquid, which has to be yields a match to any known chemical compound. And I swear, it is true. It's warm, not room temperature. It's considerately stayed at 37 degrees Celsius. And the metal, every one of our tests has come up negative. Every single one. It looks and feels like metal, but it isn't. I don't have any idea what it is. This could be big, Richie. Really big. The last email wasn't ever sent. It was found as a saved draft on Mr. Hayes' computer. Subject blank. Have you ever had a dream that was so bad you woke up in tears? I did last night. It was so awful. So real. At first I thought I was on the seashore, but the ground was warm and moist beneath my feet, and when I looked down, I saw that instead of sand, there were pores and tiny hairs and purple veins. I looked at the sea and saw something that looked like water, but stagnant and stank like an infected cut. And above me I saw a dark, cloudless red sky without stars or moon. It was so real. I didn't think I was going to wake up. Today at the lab, everyone went about their business without talking. I knew something was wrong. Something was hanging over everyone's head like a guillotine, waiting to fall. Some of my colleagues are irritable today. Many smell like they haven't washed, and all have bags under their eyes. They're not listeners, though. If anything, they're more intent on their work than they usually are. Most of them aren't even talking to each other. We've decided to open the coffin using strong acids to weaken the metal, or whatever it is, before taking a saw to it. We'll have it open in a few hours, and then we can all rest. The following is a transcription of the testimony of police officer Edmund Moore, who was called to investigate a research facility after 2 weeks of no outside contact. Questioning officer: It was November 7th, and I'm here with the witness. State your name and badge number for the record, sir. Edmund Moore. Officer Edmund Thomas Moore. My badge number is... Hold on. 0902453. Questioning officer: All right, you may proceed with your testimony. Moore: Oh, can I? Can I really? It's only been 3 hours since we've started. You FBI agents are exactly as uptight about the rules as movies say. Either that or you're unbelievably shitty at figuring out how records work. Questioning officer: The testimony, Officer Moore. Moore: What? Is this newfangled computer thing too much for you to handle? You look like you're, what, 20? 21? How the hell do you even know how to work a computer? Questioning officer: The testimony, Officer Moore. I have all day. Moore: Obviously. Questioning officer: Officer Moore. Moore: All right. Just give me a minute. Questioning officer: Officer Moore. Moore: Do not rush me. You weren't there, kid. You didn't see it. So, with all due respect, shut the fuck up and give me a damn minute. The testimony begins after a minute has passed. Alright, I was called in on October 10th. I've been anticipating some time alone with my wife, so I was a bit ticked when I got the call. I wanted to tell them to get another officer, but the recent flooding of Alden had left the station unstaffed and stretched pretty thin. What my little town lacks in population, it makes up for overzealous whining. I cannot count the times I've been called out because some old lady thought they saw a wolf, or bear, or Bigfoot. Despite their pleading, I wanted to let them handle it. But Andrea, that's my wife, told me to go. So, that was that. Now, my little town lies farther from the National Reserve. Alden is the town closest to it, but some of that wilderness reaches us and makes it pretty as a postcard. So we were constantly ranked pretty high up on the list of prettiest towns, right next to some in Vermont and Maine. I used to agree with popular opinion on that. The summers out there were warm and full of every shade of green you could think of. The falls were cozy, and the local kids made a hell of a lot of profit from leaf raking. The winter sucked though, but when do they ever not? I'm stalling, sorry. It was early in October, so the cold was creeping in, and the leaves were clogging the gutters. It had rained all week, and the weather reports were saying that it'd keep raining. It did rain a bit on the way to the lab, but it cleared up pretty quickly. New England weather and all that. The lab was big, 4-story, concrete and metal monstrosity that looked out of the place in the wilderness, like a scar, almost. I got out of the car and noticed that the lights were still on. I went up to the door, hoping that all the people that were just too deep in the work to talk to the outside world. But I got no response no matter what I did. So I called a resident lockpick, who overcharged me before he did his job, and went in. I looked around, gave myself a tour of the facility. I knew that something wasn't quite right from the moment I stepped foot in there. It was far too quiet. There were no sounds, except the pattering of rain on the roof. More signs started appearing as I worked my way through the place. A kitchen full of spoiled food, a spilled cup of coffee near the stairway to the 3rd floor that was feeding a mouse, an uphanded wastebasket near the bathroom, and a whole lot of open doors. There were little things, but each one put an extra weight on my mind. But I wasn't scared, just unnerved. And then I got the 4th and final floor. I was walking down the hall and I felt a draft through one of the open doors. I looked in and saw the largest window in the room had been shattered. I went in to investigate and immediately noticed that there was no trees near the window that were high enough to reach it. There was no debris on the floor and no glass on the inside. And the outer edges of the window frame were bent and cracked. Questioning officer. And that was what scared you. More. So it finally talks. And no, it wasn't. It was what I found, lying in the heap of the side, away from the window. Questioning officer. What did you find? More. Clothes. A big pile of wet clothing, just lying there, soaking up the rain. That was when I started to get scared. It was an image that just struck me as unnatural. I rummaged through them and found the wallets and jewelry and money all intact. So whatever it wasn't a robbery. Questioning officer, was there any blood? More. None. The clothes were ripped, but that was it. At this point I was sufficiently ready to call him back up. So I went out of the room to see if I could get a better signal outside, and I was about half the stairway when I saw a shadow on the wall opposite of mine. I turned around and there she was, standing in a doorway, dirty and mad, like a rabid dog. The instant she saw me, she bolted. I decided to, on the side of caution, and call him back up. I didn't follow her. The look in her eyes was warning enough. But I did take a look in the room where she had come from. The room had probably been one of the swankier labs, but anything, all of the equipment, the beakers and the chemicals in them, were smashed and shattered. And in the center of the room was a tall metal thing, looked like a coffin, but there were way too many sides, and the metal bulged out in weird ways. I went up and got a closer look, and saw that the front, at least I think that it was the front, was decorated with some kind of ghoul or monster, one of whose face was gone. Questioning officer, could you elaborate? More. There was a hole where the face used to be. It was like something had punched through it, but the edges of the metal were bent outward. Questioning officer, just for the record, do you have any theories as to what might have been in the coffin? More. Even after what's happened, I still don't know, and I don't want to know. Leave it at that. Questioning officer, and the woman? More. We later found out her name was Laurie Summers, but it took some doing, considering she was far too violent to let us fingerprint her. We eventually got lucky, and another officer managed to get some hair from her as she was trying to tear hers out. She didn't really tell us anything that we thought was important. When I asked her what happened to the colleagues, she only said they were taken. After what happened in the lab, everyone at the station, including myself, was a bit on edge. We had a bunch of missing people. The family and friends of whom were breathing down their necks within a day of the rumor spreading. And our only witness wasn't in the right mental state to tell us anything. I was more unnerved than others, because I was there first. So, when the call came and I heard what was going on, I felt like I was going to throw up. Over the course of a night, we received over a dozen emergency calls from Alden, all of which sounded legitimate. Alden is too small to have a real police force. The most they have is a sheriff and a few guns inside a puny former office building. So, they call us for the big emergencies. The call started at 8:45, when a local hunter called from his lodge to report that his friends hadn't returned from what was supposed to be a short trip. An hour later, a woman called to say that she saw something moving outside her summer home, and 50 minutes after that, a little girl called us to say that she had seen a monster outside her window. Her parents had gone out to calm it down, and they hadn't come back. The calls kept coming in after those first 3, but the others were pretty similar. Eventually the calls stopped. I was called in after the last one had been recorded. It was a woman. She said her name was Sandra Williams. She said that she and the rest of town had huddled up in the high school. "There's something outside," she said. "We keep hearing it outside in the streets. It sounds big." We went to Alden at dawn and found a school full of very frightened and tired people. Once that was done, we all formed search parties to go out, looking for the missing townspeople. I was in charge of the second largest group, and we took the alleyways and backyards. But all I saw was a trampoline, with its mesh siding ripped apart, a few cars with the doors opened. 7 piles of clothes, all torn, all bloodless. Questioning officer: "I see. Now, before we take a break, I need to bring up something you said previously. You mentioned having a nightmare the same night. Can you tell me about it?" More: "Why, they're just dreams." Questioning officer: "Just, please tell us." More: "Why do I need to?" Questioning officer: "All I can tell you is that the scientists who were working on the coffin may have experienced nightmares similar to yours. Now, will you please recount your first dream?" More: "All right. I was standing in some kind of field or plain, surrounded by trees on all sides. It was dusk, so the light was getting dim, but I could still see the ground beneath me and the horizon. I knew something wasn't right, almost immediately. It was so quiet, the air didn't move. There were no signs of life all around me, and I got this feeling of that place, whatever the hell it was a dead place. A place where nothing could grow or thrive. I started walking, but the ground never moved when I did. It was like I was walking in place, and then a shadow fell over me, and I got the feeling of being watched from someplace high up. I looked up there, above me, where the sun should have been, was this big, swollen tumor that moved like a heart, and as I looked, it got closer and closer, making the ground tremble as it did. Then something moved underneath the ground, something I couldn't see, but I could still feel it in the soles of my shoes. Something large, something that kept me from running, and then I had something pierce through the quiet. Something tore it up and filled my ears, and I wanted to cover it, but I couldn't. Questioning officer: "What did you hear?" More: "Screaming. Men, children, women, all of them, screaming like their skin was pulled off their bodies, screaming like they'd been set on fire. The tumor right above me now, and when I looked up, I got a good look at its surface. It wasn't a tumor, it was a mass of people, all naked, all fused to each other, with their own blood and skin, all bloody and mutilated, screaming and struggling to tear themselves free from something beneath them. More people, I think, pressed up against them, and Andrea was among them. I picked her out almost immediately. I told you about Andrea. We've been married for almost 12 years now. She's the light of my life. I'd do anything for her. And to see her like that, begging, screaming like that. I'm glad the phone woke me up. Questioning officer. I see. More. Are you married? You got a girlfriend? Boyfriend? Questioning officer. Not as of right now, mister. More. Then you don't know shit. Moore gets up from his chair. Questioning officer. Mr. Moore, we're not done yet. Please sit Moore. I'm taking a smoke break. Door slams. The next testimony was given by Sandra Williams, who recounts her night at the school. I'm not a heavy sleeper. I've been living alone for about 5 years, and I guess I am a little paranoid. Even out in Alden, which is, by all counts, totally nice and pleasant. I never felt exactly safe at nighttime. I don't know. Maybe it was just how close to the woods my house was. I never been a big fan of the great outdoors. I just don't like the idea of being alone out there, in the dark. Even before that night, I had things near my backyard. The constant mention of wolves and bears and snakes didn't help either. So, I guess my paranoia paid off. It was around midnight when I woke up. My house is little, one-story place with a big backyard. I heard and seen animals in there before, raccoons and cat mostly. But what I heard, moving around in the dark, sounded a lot bigger. I got up quickly, got my socks on and went to the window in my bedroom. I didn't see anything but a tree trunk, so I went to the back door and looked out. It was so dark out there. The trees grew pretty tall out there, and the moon was hidden. My porch lights had been getting on in the years, and weren't as bright as they used to be. So, when I turned them on, they barely lit up the porch. I couldn't see anything out there, so I thought that maybe whatever it was got scared off and moved on or something. I had just started to go back to bed when I had something bump into the side of the house, far away from the backyard, near the bedroom. A second later, the window to my bedroom shattered. I ran out the front door as fast as I could. I tried my neighbor's house. They were gone for the week, and I left my car behind. So I ran all the way into town. I got to the sheriff's office and told him about what happened. He promised that he'd send someone to check my house, and had me wait and fill out some paperwork, give a statement. So he'd sent someone out, and I sat back and waited. The officer never came back. And then the calls started coming in, one after another, each one making the sheriff more and more stressed. I tried asking him what was going on, but he told me to wait at the station while he went out looking things over himself. I honestly didn't expect him to come back, but when he did, he came back into the office, clutching his side and huffing like an asthmatic. I went over to see if he needed help, but he grabbed my shoulders and said, "Sandy, something happened there. Something bad. We need to go to the school and meet up with the others. Something is out there, and it's taking people." As you can expect, what he said made my heart leap into my throat, and I beat into the car. He rode in silence, with me staring out the window, taking in the empty houses and cars. A few times I thought I saw something moving in the alleys and rooftops. I tried to dismiss them as just shadows. My exhaustion kicked in, and after what happened, I think that whatever it was that came into town was following the car. Our town has a school that had obviously been designed by someone who thought that Alden was going to be some massive city. It's a big, 4-story brick building with a lot of very tall windows. We were able to fit most of what was left of town in the gym. Everyone looked scared and tired, and a major looked like he was about to have a heart attack. Everyone's just standing around looking worried or crying because someone they knew or loved had gone missing. I wasn't feeling very talkative, so I left the main group and wandered over the nearby window. Everything was so still. There wasn't a breeze. There wasn't a sound from outside. It was like someone had pressed a mute button on the world. I had even tuned out the people from the gym, just trying to get a hold of myself. I didn't bother trying to see who was or wasn't there, but I later learned that over 1,000, over 523 people were left. A few hours passed and my eyes started to get heavy. Everyone else had quieted down and we were miling out, looking unsure of what to do. The families were all clustered together, trying to comfort each other. The full weight of what had happened hit me right then, I think, and I just leaned against the window as my knees got weak. Outside the moon was hidden by clouds and pretty low on the horizon. It was that time of night when dawn wasn't too far away, but it still wasn't light out. The window overlooked both the playground and the street that passed the school. I decided to stare out into space, try to keep myself calm. I kept telling myself that help would come soon. I honestly didn't know if that was true. Maybe the calls hadn't gone through to the real police. Maybe they didn't believe us, or maybe whatever was out there in the darkness had gone to Greenville first. A last thought made me want to throw up. I was about to go ask someone for the phone when I saw something outside move. I didn't see all of it, but what I saw, how big it was and how... I honestly can't really find the words to describe how its silhouette looked like. Besides, wrong. I couldn't spend too much time trying to piece together what I was seeing. The thing, whatever it was, had found us and was routed out of school. I alerted everyone, and they all set about going into the depths of the school to lock doors and barricade windows with whatever they could find. I commandeered the phone from someone and called the police in Greenville. After about an hour, the people who had folded the school came back and we all sat, huddled together in the dark, listening. I honestly didn't expect to hear anything. It was getting lighter outside, and I guess I was remembering all those childhood stories where the monster vanishes at sunrise. That wasn't the case. Just as morning birdsong was starting, we hit one of the barricades near the gym break. I was one of the people who got to the barricade first. I saw the thing push the tables away from the windows near the main entrance. Again, I didn't see all of it, but I did see 3 hands clawing at the table, pushing it and splintering it with punches. I was close enough to see that the hands were bloodied, the skin in tatters, the nails ripped off, bits of glass stuck through the palms. But I never heard a sound from outside. No breathing, no grunting, no talking. The hands just kept coming at the table. Someone, A man, who I think must have been a teacher, had found a fire extinguisher somewhere in the building, so he tried bashing at the hands. He actually broke some fingers. I could hear the bones break from where I was. It took a few hits, but eventually the hands drew back through the window. And that's when the smell hit me. I swear to you, it stank like the world's biggest infected cut. It was horrible. Reminded me of maggots and pus and rotting meat. The thing left us alone after that, but we could still hear it moving around the school, so we were all on edge even after the police came. I'm honestly surprised that none of them got attacked too. I haven't gone back home yet. I don't think I can after what happened. I have a friend who still lives there. She says that the whole town feels like a tomb, and everyone who still lives there can feel how wrong the place is. She tells me that everyone there looks tired out and afraid. Says she's been having bad dreams, although she won't tell me what they're about. She says that even the policeman was stationed there, just as uneasy as the people who chose to stay. I have my friend get my things for me. She's going to move away. I think I'll join her. Alden isn't safe. I think it needs to just fade away. The next testimony was given shortly after Sandra Williams. Not long after her testimony was recorded, several officers stationed in Alden were found in a comatose state near wooded areas. Near them were found several strange clusters of organic material. It was found to emit a noxious gas in large quantities. Most of these clusters were burnt, but several were taken for examination. Questioning officer: please state your name and occupation for the record, sir. Herbert Hastley. My name is Herbert Hastley. I'm a coroner and microbiologist working for Quantico. I was brought in to study the mounts from Alden. Questioning officer: alright. My next question was going to be, what were you called in for? But I can see that you've been beaten for that. So, what can you tell me about the mounts? Herbert Hastley. Well, some of the people came into my office one day and told me that there was something I needed to take a look at. At first I thought it was a standard autopsy or something like that. But when they shepherded me to decontamination shower and hazmat suits, I knew I was in for a day. Questioning officer: I'm sure it was. Now can you tell me about the mounts? Herbert Hastley. Of course. When I first saw them, it wasn't honestly sure whether or not I was being pranked. I mean, they looked like big old piles of offal just plopped into trays. But then I got closer, and let me tell you, I decided to drop what I was doing to examine them. I mean, I don't want to get my own hopes up, but what I found will probably get me in a few medical papers. Maybe some big ones like New England Journal of Medicine. I mean, how many? Questioning officer: sir, could you please describe the mounts? Herbert Hastley. Oh, yes, of course. Well, they were large, red, and covered with fine white hairs. They were soft to a degree and filled with little holes, like a shower head. And the bases had a few dozen offshoots, like veins and arteries. Questioning officer: so the stuff was flesh? Herbert Hastley. Yes, I ran through a few dozen tests. Took a look at it under a microscope, and I found out that it was composed mainly of dog, deer, bobcat, several types of birds, and an unknown substance that I have yet to identify. I found various animal organs inside of the thing when I cut it open, but all of them had, well, been... I guess the scientific term is assimilated. They had been assimilated into one mass. And it wasn't some bizarre case where the organs had rotted or putrefied and turned into a slurry. No, it was whole, and it was functional. Anything needed for an organ to work was in place. There was no damage. Different parts had been blended together seamlessly. Questioning officer. What was the function? Herbert hastily. I found a strange, very volatile liquid inside of the organ. One that reacted to oxygen in a very odd way. You see, I took a sample and put it under an electron microscope. When I took a look, I discovered that the cells within the liquid were actually multiplying. Within a few hours, my petri dish was filled with little red clumps and had a cellular and biological structure like I've never seen before. Questioning officer. I see. And how fast it grew? Harbert hastily. Fast enough that I spilled out over the petri dish and saw it spread over the computer, and I had just left the office for a few hours. Of course, we had to bin the samples after that happened, but it was for the best. Questioning officer. And the amounts? Harbert hastily. We recorded what we could, froze a few samples, and burned the rest. It was excreted spores that probably would have had dangerous effects. That's not decontaminated the whole damn place. Questioning officer. Well, thank you for your testimony, Dr. Hastily. You may leave now. Herbert Hastily. Oh, trying to get rid of me quickly, huh? You got another interview coming up? Questioning officer. Yes, he'll be back from his smoke break soon. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Herbert Hastily. Same here. Moore's testimony concludes. Questioning officer. Welcome back, Mr. Moore. Moore. Yes. Hi. Whatever. Let's just finish this. You want to know what happened on the 23rd and the 24th, right? Questioning officer. Yes. Moore. Fine. Just let me leave after this. Questioning officer. I think that can be arranged. Moore. Good. This place stinks like a hospital and I don't like to be out in the dark anymore. Questioning officer. Could you please? Moore. You know that was out there wasn't human, right? Questioning officer. You've indicated that, Officer Moore, but I don't believe in monsters. At least not the kind you're talking about. Moore. That thing wasn't human, kid. There's evidence to support my theory. Like what Sandra Williams saw the night at school, she told me in vivid detail. Questioning officer. She said it was dark. Moore. No, the sun was up already. Questioning officer. She might have been hallucinating. Moore. From what? We've tested her. She came out clean of any mind-altering drugs. Our fellow townspeople collaborated her story. We tested them all and none of them wasn't anything. So, that's out of the window. Try another, kid. Questioning officer. Maybe the scientists were contaminated by some kind of mind-altering spore from the coffin, and they just went crazy and ran off? Moore. That's almost a comforting thought, but if that were the case, then why did the same thing happen to the people in Alden? I asked the people who got a hold of the coffin to check it for anything like that. And do you know what they concluded? Questioning officer. That there were no spores? More. That's right. No spores. Not even the slightest trace of mold or fungi. They told me the coffin barely had dust on it. So, what would make a building full of respectable, sane people strip and run into the woods? Were they on drugs too, eh? Questioning officer. Maybe they were scared? More? Scared? Scared so bad that they jumped out of their clothes? Questioning officer. I don't know. Let's wrap this up. More. Alright. I was called in after a bunch of my fellow officers were found in comas up in Alden. I don't know what the chief was thinking, sending them up there. It's not like whoever took the people was just gotta come waltzing out of the woods and give itself up. I highly doubt that anyone left in Alden has the spirit to riot or start shit with each other. So the officers, their names were Tony Rhodes, Claudio DiMacchio, and Curtis Parker, if you want to know, ended up in comas near a bunch of meat pots, or whatever the hell they were, and that got most of my higher ups off their asses, and they actually tried to do something. They called me and a bunch of others in to do a search in the woods. They brought the dogs, plenty of firepower, and a helicopter with a big-ass searchlight. The 9 whole yards. We split up in groups of 2, and spread out with the intent of going in a grid pattern. Me and my partner, the guy named Bill Lincoln, who was as old and experienced as I was, found ourselves alone pretty quick. We tried the usual things to keep away from the uneasy feeling when you're alone in the wilderness. We joked and talked about our favorite movies and our loved ones, but our words ran out after a while, and we walked in silence. It was the silence, I think, that started to get me. I've been in the reserve party plenty times, and there was always animal activity. But not that night. That night, all I could hear were footsteps, and the wind moaning through the trees around us. It was like whatever had settled there had driven the animals away. Bill and I were quite a ways in when we heard something coming at us from the undergrowth to our left. We readied our guns and aimed at them where we thought the attack would come from. I can still see the tremor in my hand when I think of that moment. I was petrified, waiting for the boogeyman to lunge out of the shadows, wondering if I could fire the gun. But as it turned out, I didn't have to. The thing that bolted out of the undergrowth was a deer. A big buck with one of its antlers snapped off. It was gone just as quickly as it had come, but the fear in his eyes told me that the thing was close. And a few steps and we passed the canopy and came to the place where the trees had bent and cracked, and the ground was torn up and covered in tracks, some of which looked like the marks of bare feet and hands. Questioning officer. What did you do then? More. I did my job and called it in. Now, I was content to just stay put and wait until everyone grouped up. But all that was out of the window when I hit something ahead of us. Not too far away, but far enough so that we had no clue where it was coming from. It was a little girl. A little girl, and she was screaming. Do you have any younger siblings? Questioning officer. Yes, a brother More? He ever break a bone when he was little? Questioning officer. Yeah, who were at Walgreens. He slipped on some ice, broke his arm in 2 places. More. Do you remember how he screamed? Questioning officer. Yes. More. The sound I heard that night, from out of the darkness, was 1,000 times more agonizing than that. It was like a little girl screaming, like every bone in her body was getting ground to paste. The scream kept going, and both of us were looking around, and neither of us knew where the hell it was coming from. And then Bill screamed. What happened next happened so fast. So damn fast. 1 minute he was beside me, his gun drawn, the next minute he was on his back, the gun gone and his body being dragged into the darkness, with more speed than I thought was humanly possible. He was gone, before I could try to help. But I did see something. Those seconds before he was gone, I saw 2 hands clutching Bill's ankle. One with painted nails, one with a wedding ring. It was stupid, but I just stood there after what happened. I couldn't wrap my head around what had just happened. I didn't see where the hands ended, or where they had come from, or how they could have dragged poor Bill away like that, with as much speed as they did. I felt like someone had sucker punched me, but I should have reacted faster. Maybe I could have gotten a shot off, scared the thing away. Then again, maybe not. I was only, really, brought back to earth when I heard Bill started screaming from somewhere nearby. Unlike the girl, he kept on screaming, and I was able to get a good read on where he was, so I ran after him. Questioning officer. Your fellow officers said that they found you near the main road? Is that where you went? More. No. I followed the screaming deep into the woods. Got some nasty cuts from the brambles, stumbled over roots. Nearly broke my neck a few times, but I didn't care. It just had been such a long month. A month of waking from nightmares, listening intensely to the local radio, wondering if I'd hear more about disappearances, wondering if whatever had taken the scientists had seen me in the lab, if I was going to come home and find it waiting in the darkness for me, or maybe coming home and finding my window broken, a pile of ripped clothes belonging to my wife. And now I was going to get some answers. At least, that's what I thought. Bill kept screaming, and the louder it got, the more afraid I became. And I kept on running, till I burst through the cluster of trees. I found myself in the clearing. Well, it was. It used to be a clearing. When I got there, it looked like hell itself had oozed up on the earth. Those mounds you guys found, the ones from animal parts, they were everywhere. They were all growing from animals who had their stomachs open, the guts stretched out over the ground. There were so many of them. It must have been the most of the reserved animal population in one place. The ground was completely covered in them. When I got close, I saw that the muscles and tissue, skin, bones were ripped out and woven together like a carpet, and the mounds were all moving, pulsing like hearts. I could hear them, all of them together at the same time. And the animals, The animals were still alive. I saw them move, twitch. I could hear them trying to breathe. I saw the moonlight reflecting off their eyes. They couldn't have been alive, but they were. Questioning officer. Officer Moore, please come. Moore. That's why the woods were so silent. All the fucking animals were blasted together in the clearing and turned into a living carpet. I can still hear their lungs trying to work and those tiny whimpers they made. Questioning officer. Mr. Moore. Moore. And at the center of the clearing, surrounded by these huge, throbbing mounds, was a pond. A pond that stank like piss, blood, and other things. A pond where all the juices from the animals collected. I heard Bill from across the way I looked, and there he was, being dragged to the pond by it. It looked like a tentacle or tail. When I looked closer, I saw 2 hands that grabbed him, then 2 more, then a dozen more, and then I saw arms of every skin color, and wet muscle, and dripping intestine. The thing that had a hold of him was made of human parts, and it was moving. Bill screamed for help. He screamed like a child, and like a baby when it gets delivered. He begged, cried, and howled as he was dragged closer to the pond, and I just stood there and watched. And then I saw something in the pond move. Something big. Something that twitched and moved, and like every part of it was living. A leg, at least that was what I think it was, came out and grabbed a hold of the ground with its 1,000 fingers. Another followed, a 4 more, and then the rest of it came out. Have you ever seen a person go into shock? Of course you have. I have too, but I've never actually experienced it before that night. But when that thing surfaced, I just felt my whole body grow cold. It looked like a spider, and a crab, and an octopus, all at the same time. Every part of it was made of human remains. Legs with their feet still attached, and arms with their hands intact, dangled below it, twitching and grabbing at nothing. Its back was made of bone, spines, femurs. The whole fucking skeleton, all bound by tendon and other stuff. In between the cracks in his hide, I saw organs and smaller limbs. The thing that had a hold of Bill was, I think, the thing's tongue. I don't know. I used what I had left of my strength to run the other way, as fast as I could. It ate Bill. I know it did. Officially he's been reported as missing, but they're never gonna find his body. They may find his clothes though. If they ever find that clearing. If they do, they're not gonna leave to report back. I quit after the night, packed my things and left with Andrea. I didn't say a word to anyone. I'm not guilty about that. I had to get out. Had to protect my wife. I used to think that the world was simple. That bad shit happened, and we had to live with it. that the universe was one of the big clusterfuck of bizarre coincidences. That there was nothing supernatural. No boogeyman, no monsters. They didn't look human. But I know better now. Listen to me, kid. If you have any say whatsoever, you get your bosses to go into that reserve and set the fucking place on fire. Questioning officer. I don't... That's just... I can't believe that... More. Have you seen the news, kid? I have. It seems like the people who live near the reserve have started reporting less animal activity than normal. Pretty soon, whatever remained of the animal population is gonna be gone. Fuel for whatever that thing is doing. And how much you wanna bet that you'll be seeing a few disappearances in the towns that were farther away in the coming months? Take my advice. Talk to our bosses. Questioning officer. I think our time is up here, Officer Moore. You can go now. We have a car waiting for you to get out. Moore. Thank God. You remember what I said, kid. Burn the reserve. Don't let the thing spread. Door closes. As of now, 17 disappearances have been reported in towns near and around the reserve. There also seemed to have been a sudden rash of nightmares, with elements much like the ones described previously. Many people in the surrounding towns, and even outside of them, the statements have been gathered in order to provide clues as to whom the culprit might be. No actions, government sanctioned or otherwise, have been taken.